Nichols Noms, it's a big time for racing here in WA, but it's a massive time for racing over east as well as we count down to the behemoth races over there in the east. Of course, the Everest, we've got the Caulfield Cup, Melbourne Cup and Cox Plate in the next few weeks. And the racing and media executive at the Melbourne Racing Club, Josh Rodda, is about to join us now to chat about racing primarily, of course, there in Victoria. Guineas Day there on the weekend. Good afternoon, Josh. It's great to chat to you again, mate. Thanks for coming on.
Good afternoon, Alex. Good afternoon, team. Good afternoon to all the listeners over there in WA. It's a bit more of a delay now with the daylight savings, but sun's still shining over here as we just tick past 6 o'clock.
It is, Josh, and thanks for your time. As we know, it is a little bit later now over there with the daylight savings kicking in. But what a day of racing it was out at Caulfield on the weekend to kick off the Caulfield Cup Racing Carnival. We had the running of the Caulfield Guineas. Autumn Boy was able to take that one out. Back-to-back successes in that race for Chris Waller and Damien Lane. But there were some terrific support act stories as well throughout the program. O2 Good in that Jeweller's Vase, the only horse that Kevin Daffy trains, and Charlotte Littlefield in the last. It was a great way to kick off the carnival, Josh, wasn't it?
Oh, it was amazing. It was only 4 or 6 weeks ago that everyone sort of saying that Yulong had all the ammunition and was going to win every race, and then gets one of the biggest race days of the year. And, you know, to see people like Kevin Daffy, Clayton Douglas, you know, Charlotte Littlefield, racing's a real leveller. And it's why it's such an interesting sport to be involved with and watch. Very impressive win early in the day, I thought, from Point Barrow in the Thoroughbred Club of Australia Plate. I had my money on Vain Girl, and 100 metres to go was sitting pretty, and then Point Barrow came with a withering burst from the back of the field, and I thought was one of the wins of the day. Good to see Busselton and Young with a Caulfield Cup runner after Braden Starr took out the Herbert Power and earned a spot in the Caulfield Cup. Yeah, it was just a great day across the whole day. Leon and Troy Corsons with their nephew Will Larkin were able to win the Weekend Hustler. So, yeah, it was a real spread of results and, exciting times. Now the interest moves towards Wednesday here at Caulfield with Caulfield Social, and then on to our flagship race, the Caulfield Cup on Saturday. So it's a big week, and if Saturday was anything to go by, it's going to get bigger and better.
Northam only a minute away, punters. Get your bets on there. Race number 10, the favourite, very, very short. Night Lighter, goodness me, $1.03 with Tap Touch. Just very quickly, before we go and expand more after this race at Northam, Josh, can I guess, ask a bit of a negative question? Was it disappointing to see only 4 horses end up going around in the Might and Power Stakes, one of the main races on the program?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's never, it's never fantastic when you've got those small fields, for, the way the races are run, the wagering outcomes, etc. But, for years there's been the occasional wait for age race for the small fields.
Yeah.
They do pop up occasionally, but at the moment the pattern of races around Australia on the East Coast is just really tight. The options, we have the Hill Stakes in Sydney and, of course, the Alan Brown, which obviously, knocked a few off the Toorak. It was only 7 days, the Toorak, after the running of the Group 1 Epsom. So there's just so many options for connections, and there's only so many horses. So, it was disappointing, but I thought it was an intriguing run race. I mean, Blake Shin was able to dictate in front and, and stop-start sort of tactics. But, you always want bigger fields. Now these horses the question is whether they head on to the Cox Plate, where I think they're also thinking it'll only be a smaller type field, maybe 7 or 8 runners. So, it's so many options and there's only so many horses, and I think that's the fact at the moment. So hopefully eventually, the clubs and Racing Australia and all the governing bodies can get together and really create a pattern where all the states... Speaking
to Josh Rodda from the Melbourne Racing Club, and plenty to talk about after the meeting at Caulfield on Saturday, Josh. But we were just alluding to the 4-horse field there in the Might and Power Stakes, and I guess the tough task the schedulers have over there in Victoria because of the tight scheduling and the fact there's so many options for different trainers and horses.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I think I was just trying to say that, the sooner all the governing bodies and clubs and representatives from all the states can get together and just make sure our Australian pattern works well it's very important that all states are flourishing with their racing, not just 2, in my opinion. So fingers crossed all the leaders Our great sport can get together and work things out.
Hey, Josh, it's one of my favourite races on the calendar year on year, the Caulfield Cup. And I was hoping, given you are a very sharp analyst in your own right, you could paint a bit of a picture for us for this race this weekend. Taking a look at the market, the way that it sits at the moment, Half Yours is the favourite at $2.60, a pretty heavy favourite as well with Tab Touch. You go to Maidan at $8, Vauban at $11 and Buckaroo at $12, anticipating that they might look at backing up from that might and power on the weekend. Is it that simple, Josh? Is Half Yours in the box seat to be taking out this year's race, or do you perhaps have a different opinion on how things might play out in Caulfield's great race on the weekend?
Well, the McAvoys have got him in absolutely fine form, Half Yours. You know, his lead-up form's been tremendous. He won his spot in the Cup by winning the Naturalism. We remember back to Jamaica, the last Caulfield trained horse to win the Caulfield Cup was able to win the Naturalism, ran a cracker in the Turnbull and dominated the Caulfield Cup. And that's the advantage Half Yours has because he's come through this winter preparation in such fantastic form. He gets him with a lightweight of 52.5 kilos. And he's running the Turnbull, which was a really good race, obviously. Sir Dullius, the Melbourne Cup favourite, the winner, the likes of Cox Plate contenders Antino and Via Sistina. He ran that slashing run. They were mean sectionals late in the race, carried 56. He drops, 3.5 kilos into the Caulfield Cup on Saturday. So, I've seen some great trials in Turnbull stakes, such as Diatribe and Jamaica. It was another great trial. 260 is very tight, though. I like shopping for a bit more value than that. Maidan's got great credentials. Last start finished third in the UK. The winner of that race was Gia Valletto, who came out and ran fourth in the Arc de Triomphe. The Crisfords have been saying that they brought Westwind Blows, who ran such a fantastic race in the Caulfield Cup a few years ago. Mm-hmm. They say this horse probably has better credentials, but he can be inconsistent. Royal Supremacy is high in the market. It's on borderline at the moment. It will need Buckaroo it's number 19 at the moment, but it really depends what Buckaroo does. Buckaroo accepts, I think it'll be first emergency. But with that, a lot of horses galloping in the morning will know a lot more on who pays up. Vauban was very unlucky in the Metrop. Ran well. I've always thought he was a Caulfield Cup type of horse, and Gay looks to have got some good speed in his legs. The Japanese runner Gold Snap takes her place in the race. Absurd. 2 cracks at a Melbourne Cup now, and they're now having to go at the Caulfield Cup. I thought there was a couple of value. I mentioned when I was on radio with you guys and Marty a little while back, a horse called Moira. I know she hasn't been winning, but I just love the way she's been closing off her races. The races haven't really been run to suit. She's a Group 1 Breeders' Cup winner over the 2200. She's good on top of the ground. I thought her form's really good. She was only fourth in a Lawrence, beating a couple of lengths over 1400. Ran second in the So You Think, was a slashing run at Moonee Valley. And then fourth in the Underwood behind Sir Dullius and Buckaroo at Weight for Age. I know she might have looked a bit, disappointing on paper in the Turnbull. Her SP was $101. But if you go back and look at the sectionals, I thought her run was adequate going into a Caulfield Cup. Nashua Willa, no one rides Caulfield, any better. He's a great Caulfield rider. He won a Caulfield Cup on Elstrom. He takes the ride for Chris Waller. We just know how good a grand final trainer Chris Waller is. I just think it's a really even cup. And I just thought Moira would run a great race. And I thought the other one was Revelair. I think it could pay to forgive his run in the Bart Cummings with a big weight. It was a frenetic run race. And I think back to 2,400 at Caulfield and, dropping 5.5 kilos. I thought he's another one that could be a good weight chance. So
has Marty been in your ear, has he, Josh?
No, he hasn't.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I know he's a big rut for the horse. I had a horse, actually, that beat Revelair at Seymour in track record time going back a while ago, and this horse ended up winning his next 6 starts. But, his win at Caulfield early in the prep was dominant. I thought he was, again, dominant, in the Archer Stakes. And I think, 2,400 metres and back down in the weights, I think he can run a much better race. And I just think he's over the odds. Revelair at $26. And I think Moira's also over the odds. I just thought there were a couple at odds that are worth having something each way on because I know Half Yours deserves to be favourite. There's no doubt about that. But when you get past those top 4 or 5 in the betting, there's a long tail to the race. And they were just 2 horses that I thought could run better than their price suggests.
Okay, so a couple that we need to be respecting of in that market. Moira, $31 and $8.50 a place with Tab Touch, and Revelair, $26 and $7.25 with Tab Touch, heading towards the Group 1 Caulfield Cup on Saturday. Have you had a look at the 1,000 Guineas, Josh? Another, well, pretty short price favourite here in Apocalyptic, and I guess understandably so off the back of her last performance.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard to beat Apocalyptic. She's comes out here tomorrow morning. I'll have a look at the track with her new rider, Mark Zahra, in the saddle. You just can't fault her form. What she's done this time in 3 for 3. Again, I think they're an even bunch of fillies down here. A lot of different form lines to consider. They've come through, different preparations, the likes of Ole Dancer and Ferrivia. I think Apocalyptic deserves to be the favourite. I think she will win. Ole Dancer was unlucky at Sandown. I love the way it hit the line. One that I think will run better than she did last start is a horse called Yum. Yum was a winner of the Jim Maloney going back at Caulfield last month.
Yep.
It was an amazing win. She really appreciated the speed on. And once she balanced up, she really rushed to the line. I'm a big fan of this stallion Gayaf, who's the sire of Observer and many nice 3-year-olds. I really love that win. And at Flemington, they just went too slow in front. And Jamie Mott, she just raced through the bridle a little bit, 3 wide with cover, and they just out-sprinted her. But if it's a genuine run race in the 1,000 Guineas, back to Caulfield at a mile, I think Yum can improve on her last start effort. But Apocalyptic, a deserved favourite. She's Sydney's queen. I can't see any reason why she won't become Melbourne's queen.
Do you like the reinstatement of 1,000 Guineas on Caulfield Cup Day, Josh?
Yeah, I do. I think it just allows, like we saw in the Caulfield Guineas last week, the best of Melbourne 3-year-olds fillies against the best of Sydney 3-year-old fillies. I think it was worth a try. It was tried. We had good winners of the race, the likes of Jolly Star a couple of years ago, another Prophet last year betting Aliana. Obviously, wherever you set a race, trainers can make programs around it. Some of those fillies that were probably a little bit behind early in the spring could be saved for it. But I do think a race of this stature deserves to be in the heart of the Caulfield Cup Carnival. And, this Saturday you can see it's shaping like it'll be a great field. Both draws for the 1,000 Guineas and the Caulfield Cup will be held on Wednesday morning after acceptances here at the racecourse. And, the first ever 1,000 Guineas run all the way back in 1946 and won by Sweet Chime was run on Caulfield Cup Day, and it just gives that 2 weeks break between the flight stakes in Sydney and the 1,000 Guineas. So it just shows you when the two states can work together and the programming works, we can have these great clashes between, both states' best 3-year-old fillies.
Absolutely, Josh. Well said. In terms of, I guess, the other races on the program to complement the 2 Group 1s, is there anything at this early stage of the week that you're really looking forward to? We have the running of the Moongar, we've got the Tristark, the Ethereal. There's some great racing to complement the 2 big Group 1s there on Saturday as well. Yeah,
I still haven't had a deep dive into those races on Saturday. We'll see many of them have a gallop here in the morning and get a guide on how they're going. I'm really excited to see a horse called Order Mystery go around in the Sportsbet Classic. We're very proud of what the achievements our Mornington trainers have had, over the last few years. They've always punched above their weight. And Order Mystery is trained by a young man called Rory Hunter, who some of the older listeners might remember Steve Hunter, Rory's father, at one stage managing Mr. Till, quality Perth sprinter. And it's a family-run operation. Rory and his brother Angus and father Steve helped out Mick Price for many years when they trained at Caulfield. This horse won his spot in the Victorian Derby, winning the Derby preview at Flemington a few weeks ago. He'll come and gallop here in the morning. It'd be a great story if Rory was able to win one of these big races at Caulfield. So I'm looking forward to seeing him go around in the Sportsbet Classic. So it's that's one I'm looking forward to. And then, you've got the Moongar, the Tristark. Still waiting to see how those fields will line up. But I was pretty impressed with Media World at Flemington winning the last the other day. I think he's a progressive horse. Yep. And he's nominated also for the Moongar Stakes. So he might be a bit of a value play in that. He's a horse in form, and we just know how good the Snowdens are when they, swing in and target Melbourne.
Well, there you go. Funny story, Al, actually, is that Rory Hunter was the trainer of my very first winner as an owner.
Is that right?
And so before Songer made his trip across to Perth, he won a maiden at Stony Creek when formerly trained by Rory.
How
so
did
there
you get in
go.
a horse that was trained by Rory Hunter?
Well, it was
Stony
always a
Creek?
plan to bring him back across here to the west, and we gave him a couple more runs over there in Melbourne, and he was able to knock that maiden off over there before he made his way here and did a great job. So there you go. I'll be keeping a keen eye on Autumn Mystery. There it is, Josh. Absolutely, in that Sports Bet Classic on Saturday for sure.
All right, there we go. That's a
nice little
small
anecdote
world.
there.
Yeah, it's a small world. Nice
world.
little connector. 2 minutes off race number 6 at Pinjarra. We have to get to Pinjarra. Josh, thank you so much for your time, mate. It's a very exciting time. Best of luck with, first of all, Caulfield Social this week, and then the big day, Caulfield Cup Day on the weekend, mate. Hopefully it's a very, very successful day.
Thanks, Josh.
I can't wait. Thanks for giving me the time. Happy racing to all the
best.
listeners, and enjoy the carnival.